Welcome back, everyone, to today's Explainer. If you've ever owned a home with a yard, you know that keeping it looking good and keeping it safe can be a massive investment. But let's be honest, few things feel quite as opaque or frustrating as the seemingly arbitrary pricing of tree removal. Today, we are totally demystifying those costs. We're going to break down the exact anatomy of a quote so you understand precisely what you're paying for, and most importantly, why those costs vary so wildly.
So why do tree removal quotes vary so much? It's the classic homeowner's pain point. Picture this. You look at a tree in your yard, and then you look at a tree in your neighbor's yard. To the untrained eye, they look practically identical. Yet, when the arborist hands over the estimates, your quote is hundreds, maybe even thousands of dollars higher. Like, no way. Why exactly does that happen? What hidden factors is that crew seeing that you aren't?
Okay, let's dive into this. While every single job is completely unique, we do have some solid data to anchor us. For most homeowners, the typical cost to remove a mid-sized tree lands right around $900. But I want you to look at that number as merely a starting line, a baseline before reality sets in, because the final bill you actually receive is going to fluctuate dramatically based on a very specific set of rules. To help you think like a pro arborist, we're essentially going to build a customized receipt from scratch today. Here's our roadmap. We'll start with the base cost of removal, explore how size dictates price, and calculate the cost of complexity. Then we'll factor in weather and emergency premiums before wrapping up with some smart ways to quote so you never get caught off guard. All right, Section 1, the base cost of removal. Let's establish the foundational rules of pricing.
While $900 is our mid-sized average, the typical broad range you'll actually encounter is between $400 and $2,500. I mean, that is a massive spread. A small, really simple tree removal can be as low as $300. But on the flip side, dealing with massive pines or towering oaks, that can easily push well past the $3,000 mark once access and cleanup are fully factored in.
So the crucial point here is that certified crews aren't just guessing. They are assessing 4 very specific physical drivers before giving you a quote. First is size and height. Taller trees just require more rigging and labor. Second is trunk diameter. A thicker trunk literally takes longer to cut and haul away. Third is job complexity, which we'll cover in depth in a minute. And fourth, this is a big one, is the tree's condition and species. A brittle water oak or a super resin-heavy /pine behaves very differently under a chainsaw than a soft maple. And if a tree's dead or leaving, that carries extra risk, which immediately adds to the cost.
Moving right along to Section 2, how size dictates price. This right here is the single biggest driver of any quote you'll receive.
Now, what's really interesting about this slide is how clearly defined these height tiers are. A small tree, under 30 feet, will comfortably sit in that $300 to $550 range. But watch what happens when we jump to a medium tree. Between 30 and 60 feet, the cost effectively doubles to between $600 and $1,200. A large tree, 60 to 80 feet, takes us up to $2,200, and a very large tree, anything over 80 feet, starts at $2,200 and climbs up to $3,500 or more. Height completely dictates the sheer volume of labor required.
But height isn't the only size metric. Take mature live oaks, for example. Even if they aren't the tallest trees on the block, they almost always land in the large or very large pricing range. Why? Because they have these massive, wide, incredibly heavy canopies. A crew can't just fell the tree right at the base. They have to spend significantly more time up there, climbing, sectioning out those heavy horizontal branches, and lowering them super safely to the ground.
Which brings us to Section 3, the cost of complexity. This is where we introduce the yes and escalation of environmental factors. Remember earlier when we asked why 2 identical-looking trees can have totally different prices? Well, access changes everything. A tree standing completely alone in a wide-open backyard is a piece of cake. The crew can fell it in large sections and just drop them clear without worrying about hitting anything. But take that exact same tree and lean it over your roof, or tangle its branches in active power lines, that is a completely different job, requiring careful, meticulous rigging.
Now, I know absolutely no one likes watching a bill go up, but let's start building the add-ons to your invoice so you understand exactly where the money goes. If your tree is located near vulnerable structures like your house, a fence, or utility lines, you can definitely expect to add an extra $200 to $800 to your base quote just for the required precision and liability. Let's keep building that invoice. If the tree is in a spot where it just can't be safely climbed, you have to bring in the heavy equipment. If a bucket truck or a crane is required to lift the sections out from above, go ahead and wave goodbye to another $500 at an absolute minimum. Next on the invoice, actually getting the wood out of your yard. If you have a tight, inaccessible lot where heavy machinery can't get to the trunk, the crew has to haul all that heavy wood out by hand or with much smaller equipment. That difficult haul out, it adds another $100 to $400 to the growing bill.
And finally, the classic surprise charge. Stump grinding is almost always left as a completely separate line item. Leaving a stump behind is standard practice unless you specifically ask otherwise. So if you want the leftover base cleared so you aren't staring at it for the next decade, add another $100 to $400, which is calculated largely based on the stump's diameter.
All right, Section 4, Weather and Emergency Premiums. Enter the unpredictable wild card of our pricing equation.
Timing dramatically impacts your wallet, and this brilliantly illustrates the massive difference between a standard, scheduled removal and a panicked call to an arborist after a severe thunderstorm or right in the middle of hurricane season. Emergency work carries a hefty premium of 20 to 50% over standard rates, because when you make that call, crews are mobilizing off hours, often working in dark, wet, and highly unstable conditions just to get a tree off your roof or driveway. The lesson here is pretty simple. Planning ahead is substantially cheaper than reacting to an emergency. If you have a dead or leaning tree, scheduling preventative storm work before the season peaks can save you from that massive 20 to 50% emergency fee entirely.
But wait, before you sign that high-priced quote, let's take a step back. Let's ask an honest, empathetic question. Does the tree actually need removal? Taking a tree down is literally the absolute most expensive option available, so it is always worth confirming if it's the right move for you and your property.
Because there are fantastic, much less expensive alternatives that can save both the tree and your wallet. A structurally weak tree can sometimes be saved with professional cabling and bracing to support those heavy limbs. Or, an overgrown canopy that's inching too close to your house might only need a proper strategic trim to significantly reduce the risk. Getting a certified arborist inspection will tell you exactly which path makes sense. If it's truly hazardous, you remove it. If not, you maintain it.
Let's move to our final section. Section 5, Smart Ways to Quote. Let's empower you as the consumer and see how this all builds together. To avoid scams and surprise charges on your final bill, you need to walk through this checklist. Step 1. Demand an on-site look. Ground conditions, root spread, and access limitations absolutely cannot be judged accurately from a quick photo sent on your phone. Step 2. Beware of severely underpriced quotes. If a quote is far below the averages we've discussed today, it often means the crew is skipping vital liability insurance, necessary permits, or full safety protocols. And Step 3. Always confirm in writing if hauling the debris away and grinding the stump are actually included in the final price, because, as we've learned, those are the most common sources of surprise charges.
So, you now know the anatomy of a quote. You know exactly why tree removal costs vary. You understand height tiers, access premiums, equipment surcharges, and the sheer danger of emergency rates. So the next time you look out at your yard, look a little closer. Now that you know the formula, what hidden variables will you spot in your next landscaping quote? Keep learning, stay curious, and we'll see you in the next explainer.